Meet Norman. Welcome to /r/Life of Norman. Whether you're brand new to the community, you've been visiting for a while, or you were somehow born here, we wanted to take a moment to introduce you to Norman. Norman is a balding, middle-aged man who lives with his cat, who is also named Norman. He was once married but is now divorced, and he has an adult son who has long since moved away. Norman is known to muddle through everyday life, but he can also go on grand adventures, provided that he remains himself throughout the entire narrative. You see, there's a stark and important difference between a story about Norman and a story about a guy who physically resembles or shares a name with Norman. Norman is not depressed, anxious, sociopathic, or suffering from any other mental malady, simply by virtue of the fact that he is entirely too simple-minded. He isn't dumb, mind you, he just views the world in a way which often leads him to quietly confident yet sometimes absurd conclusions. For example, Norman might decide to go for a stroll in the park, then discover that his usual route is blocked by a hot dog cart. Rather than walk around the obstacle, he would patiently wait for it to move, continue on his way, then be vaguely irritated upon discovering that his intended destination, a cart that sells hot dogs with heaping mounds of sauerkraut, isn't present at its usual location. He could then experience a flash of epiphany, smile to himself, and triumphantly strut back the way that he had come, having realized that he can purchase his lunch from the other cart that he'd seen. Upon finding that it, too, had vanished, Norman's disappointment might be tempered by a sense of relief. Not only would the universe have righted itself, but he wouldn't have to eat that awful sauerkraut, either. Norman can find himself in virtually any situation or set of circumstances, but he is always Norman. He has no deep regrets, no lofty aspirations, and no far-reaching concerns, if only because he lives in a perpetual state of emotional now. His mood never rises beyond dully pleased, and it never falls beneath annoyed. A Zen master meeting Norman might come away feeling envious or impressed, whereas Norman would briefly contemplate the appeal of wearing a robe. If he decides to call his son, he doesn't feel sad when the boy doesn't pick up, he just wonders if he dialed the wrong number, then refrains from trying again, lest he bother the stranger on the other end. Norman always tries to do the right thing, and he's generally satisfied that he has. And any negative reactions are cause for muted curiosity rather than concern, because they must have been prompted by something unrelated. Norman, on the other hand, might go utterly berserk for no reason at all. Because cats have a tendency to do that.